are relics of slave trade, activities of slavery around the world, and particularly here in Nigeria, how people were taken away from their different localities to the New World. These people were actually packed in the ship in this form. And what we see before us here are artistic impressions of how the slaves were packed. So they kept them, the head facing the legs, so that there won't be any act of conspiracy against their masters. Both male and female slaves were all in chains and in shackles. The slaves were fed like that. They did all their toiletries there, urinated there, defecated there. The journey lasted between 3 to 6 months in the ocean, depending on wherever they were taken to. And because of this, over 50% of the slaves could not make the journey. Some of them died, others became weak and sick, and this set of persons were thrown and 6 slaves. They won't be able to work in their plantations. The interest too wasn't for human being alone. They took away our raw materials from Africa. And what you see on top of the ship are barrels of palm products. And these are boxes loaded with spices and cotton. Once they arrived, these products were sold over there. More of these palm products were transformed into finished goods and then sent back to different countries in Africa. And that gave rise to what we refer to as the triangular trade. So slavery generally existed between 14th to 18th century. And then within Africa, it was between the mid-15th to 18th century. So the period we are looking at here is the period between 300 to 400 years of it existing around the world. And as soon as this European arrived the shores of Africa, there was nothing like paper money. So what they came with were different objects. So these objects were to entice our African chiefs. And as soon as these objects were given to them, they accepted them and then gave the human being in return as slaves. So we have things like gin in bottle, and then we have wooden mirror, we have cowries, imported trades and copper rods that we use as medium of exchange in the West. We also have different types of manillas, and these were objects that were used as medium of exchange. So as soon as these objects were given to them, they accepted them and then gave the human being in return as slaves. So where are we? Okay, let's these ones are all objects that were used as medium of exchange. Okay. Even including this one is taken. Okay. Next. Slave trade. So you will agree with me that within the transatlantic slave trade, these were where Nigerians sent us the bite of Benin and bite of Biafra. And if you put these figures together, you have 41.4. That ranked the highest because none are up to 20. The next is 18.4. That's Gold Coast, Ghana. So it means Nigerians were the highest that were taken away from this. We voted against their masters. So some of them were meant to that punishment. Okay, that's punishment too. We have some of them who were brutally punished. These are the ones that were brutally punished. You can see some of them who had their hands hung, their bodies suspended. Others were also hung by their wrists, and they were allowed to remain and die. These are skeletons of those ones who have died, of the man held captive in the net. So as soon as these people were left to remain, they arrived the New World with this net. And then you have the skin covered oracle which was a charm. So once the charm enters their ankle, it protects them. And once they are protected, they are taken away by their masters. Unfortunately, this was made by Africa. The charm was made by Africa against Africa. So this is the abolitionists. They are the pictures of those who also came together to put an end to the activities of slavery. The first man who spearheaded this movement is William Wilberforce. Then others like Frank Bishop, Thomas Latin as a clergyman, and then Los Memphis. So all these were those who supported this movement. But finally, freedom was achieved in 1st May 1807 in England. And then you also have Franco Dominic, who led the highest second revolution in France. Olaudah Equiano too is an Igbo slave from Abia, who was taken when he was 11 years old to Cuba. In Cuba, he worked realizing the sum of 47 pounds, which he gave to his master and bought his freedom. So trying to trace his route to Africa, he died in Chechen April 1797 without reaching his hometown. So when this freedom was achieved, the first man who came back home is Bishop Samuel Ajayi Crowther. Ajayi Crowther became the first African bishop, and he translated the Bible from English to Yoruba language. So standing with him is his son, who became the grandfather to Herbert Macaulay Maternally. Then you can see the society that was founded by Captain Shaft to bring in human out of slavery. This is Manuel Nascimento from Brazil. The pictures you see here are more of those places who were free, but who could not trace their homes. That's why you have Africans spread all over. So the Dark Age reminds us that slavery existed in those days, refers to as the Dark Era. So as soon as these people arrived in the New World, they were given a place to rest. So this is exactly what we are going into now. Okay. So this is exactly how these people who finally arrived in the New World were given a place to rest. And while here, they were all given a place to rest. And here, as they were resting, so many of them complained bitterly because they were not happy that they have arrived in the New World. But there were so many of them who were courageous. And here, they were told here that the new ones over there would be better farm for them to work than the ones in Africa. Or little did they know they were going for more suffering. So this is the resting room. So as soon as the slaves were released from there, they took them to the auction market. So in the auction market, there were so many of these prospective buyers who could not arrive to the shores of Africa. So as soon as they arrived there, they auctioned out the slaves. So you can see the buyer, the seller, and then the slave at the middle. And so the transaction kicks off. And the highest bidder finally takes home the slave. So as soon as the slaves arrived at various homes, they were branded. So the aspect of this branding was actually a barbaric act, because it was a situation where hot objects were used from fire to pierce the skin of the slave just for identification purposes. So this was purely man humanity to man, and so barbaric. In fact, this was where the highest level of wickedness was shown to the African slaves, using hot objects from fire to give them marks of identification. Then the next one, we also have so many of them who also had to work in cotton plantation. Here in cotton plantation, they were sent in pairs, male and female. The essence of sending them in pairs was for reproduction. As soon as children were reproduced between the ages of 2 and 3 years, they separated all of them. The children had to work feeding themselves until maturity. Between the ages of 15 and 18, when they are fully mature, they are returned back here. At that age, they had no knowledge of who their parents are. So the male children miss their mother, their sister unknowingly, because what happens here is that what actually obtainable was that it was an advantage to their masters, because he will no longer travel to Africa to get slaves. All he needs to do is to make use of the one available in his plantation. So it was an environment where the highest level of incest was practiced. So we also have the Ekwe masquerade, which is also played in Calabar today. This is still the same masquerade played in Cuba, Brazil, Jamaica, and most part of Latin America till date. The essence of this masquerade wasn't for entertainment alone, but to maintain African culture. And that is exactly how it is. Within the shores of Calabar, Ekwe serves as an agent of social control in those days, because it was a government on its own. And apart from serving as an agent of social control, it promoted the growth of Christianity, because on every Sunday, Ekwe ensures that people move out of their homes to worship God in their respective churches. Then we also have the runaway slaves. These were slaves who also were taken to North and Southern America, where the Civil War broke out. And while there, they saw themselves killed. So what they did was to escape, but then they were kept under close observation. And if any suspicious move is noticed, they had to use their horses wild up to chase them. And almost all of these ones who were chased were caught, because where would you run to, who do you know? And so many of them who were caught were treated so badly. Some had to have their toes cut off, others had them lynched by hand. Okay, let's move to the next one. So we also have the punishment that were also measured on this list. You can see how some had to use their wild dogs to beat them until they were dead. Others had them lynched by hanging. Some were hung with just a hand, and they were allowed to swing like a pendulum. Others were beaten by their bare bodies, and thereafter were released to go back to their plantation. So these were various punishments given to the African slaves. Okay, and finally, this is the freedom. And as I told you earlier, that this freedom was given to them in 1st May 1807. And this actually was spearheaded by William Wilberforce and was finally proclaimed by His Majesty of England. So it took effect from 1st May 1807 in England. As I said, this abolition that came up first in England does not mean that slavery was abolished all over the world. That there were some other countries that still had slavery, but it was in England that it was first abolished. Like America, it took them over 50 years before it was abolished. And so when this freedom was achieved, so many of the states who were there became so happy. You can see the woman lifting up her hand in jubilation and in thanksgiving to God. And so many who had been in chains and in shackles were freed. So it was after this freedom that they were given resettlement centers. Some were taken to Freetown in Sierra Leone, others were taken to Monrovia in Liberia as their resettlement homes. Unfortunately, they could not trace their homes because, as I said, it was a situation that has lasted between 300 to 400 years of its existence. They had lost contact with their family members, lost contact even with the first generation, the second, even to the third had all gone. So it was impossible for them to trace back their home. And that's why you have Africans spread all over the world till date. So the ancient acts of Nigeria remind us too that Africans were civilized even before we were colonized by the Europeans, and that we have our own way of advancement technologically even before we were colonized. So this is the timeline of Nigerian act. All these are the timeline of Nigerian act. So we'll take them one after the other and move ahead. The first act that was also discovered is the Bekuna Canoe. The Bekuna Canoe was accidentally discovered in Damaturu State by a cattle rearer, and who was digging the ground to get water for his cattle to drink. So accidentally, this canoe was discovered. It was radiocarbon dated to have existed for 8,000 years. So it is the first canoe in Nigeria, the first in Africa as a continent, and then the third oldest in the whole world. That's to say, Nigeria already had the knowledge of water transportation even before we were colonized by the Europeans. So that's an aspect of civilization. And then we also have the North Terracotta. The North also is the origin of metal objects. So these North Terracottas had been in existence between 500 BC to 200 AD and were first discovered in this village. The Nok is a town in Jaba local government area of Kaduna State, and also discovered in Kastinala in Benue and in Kagara in Niger. So they represent various dignitaries, heads of dignitaries like priests, kings, queens, and so on and so forth. So we also have the Bakom monoliths. These ones are stones that were also discovered in Ikom. There are areas where these stones were discovered, Alok and Nkarazi. And so these stones were about 200 images. Then they represent various male ancestors of the Koyi tribe. The Koyi tribes are tribes in Cross River North. And so these facial representations are communicative. It means that our parents who lived in those days already had the knowledge of writing, even if they could not write in English language, but that they wrote in the language they themselves understood. And that is an aspect of civilization. We have the Calabar Terracottas. These were made by the Efe women who were so talented in using clay to make pots. Most of these pots, these were made from clay, and it depicts the way the Efik women braid their hair traditionally. And the pots had these symbols, which they call Isibidi. Isibidi is an aspect of sign language used by the Efe society. So you have to be an initiated member of Efe to be able to interpret these symbols. So this is just the original piece of what we have here. And then we also have Igboku here. So Igboku too is the town close to Oka in Anambra State. This is where the first bones were discovered in sub-Saharan Africa. In fact, these bones were discovered by British archaeologists referred to as Scotland Shore. They discovered these bones in three brothers' compound. They called them the Moses brothers, Igbo Azaya, Igbo Richard, and Igbo Jonah. Of course, the bones have been in existence between 9th to 10th century. They were the first to be discovered in sub-Saharan Africa. And then we also have Ife culture. Ife too traces the origin of the Yoruba people. Of course, Ife is the ancestral home of the Yoruba. So Ife is the only city that has three major media. They have the stone sculpture, terracotta, and bronze. But generally, it tells us about royalty. That's why you have the head, the Oni head, the crown head of Ife, and the head of the queen. So Ife also have a court act, and then between Ife and Benin, you have a war. So they share similarities of culture. Owo is a town in Ondo. So Owo had a fragmented art. And so many of them were excavated and they were tempered with. So that's why you see them in fragmented art. And so most of them came in different shape of animals like tortoise, leopard, mudfish, and so on. They were also used for religious rituals, ceremonies, political titles, royal costumes, and so on and so forth. And then we have the lower Niger. These ones involve 3 areas: Kogi State, Niger, and Kwara. They also have bronze work, but theirs came in form of human. You can see some with a club, others with a staff. And then the second art, which we also have in Nigeria today, is the Benin art. Of course, Benin is the only city that still has bronze casting till date. But in Benin, it was a court act. Why was it a court act? Was that the Yoruba then kept all of this art, and nobody was allowed to have them apart from the Yoruba. So it was a monopoly of culture. But then during the British expeditions of 1897, so many of these art were carted away by the British. The Queen Edith head that was used in Faisal 77 was a replica. The original is still found in the British Museum till date. And these ones are object of custom and tradition. This is the double-faced spoon cover plant. This was used for the coronation of the late Independence of the course here in Cross River. The Beji object are replicas of twins in Yoruba culture. You know that once twins are born in Yoruba and one dies, these replicas are made and kept so that the one that is living is surviving. So they call them the Beji. And this is Epo is an ancestral form of the so in your place, once you are not fragile and this object is at peace, this is the community. That's their belief. And then we have the Funes terracotta, which traces the origin of stone age. You know, terracottas are objects that are highly fragile. They are big plates. So we also have a kenga. A kenga too is an Igbo object of man's personal achievement. And once that is traditionally at peace, to inspire their businesses, make them engage victorious in war, and all that. And then we also have a Seso stone. These stones, pardon?
The voodoo or
no, the kenga. It's called the kenga. It's the name, the kenga. So stones. These are stones that were mysteriously discovered in the bush. So half the stones came to be there when in this trunk today. People go there for prayers and worship until they were stopped. But interestingly, if you feel the stone when they are soaked, you see foam coming out of the stone, which means they are soaking in nature. They are not affected, they remain the way they are. That's where they got their name, soapstones. So it's here in Kwara State. That's kind of Kwara. That's where you get these stones. There are about 1,000 images. Some of them are sacred figures, some standing.
I think used for anything.
Pardon?
I think used for anything.
No, it's just, well, I think it was, some believe that they were cursed by their oracles, or they were cursed by the gods, that it was like a village, and they were cursed, and then they became stones, that they were people naturally. So if you go there, you see some of them seated, others in this form, and so on and so forth. Called Ejegu. Ejegu is also found in Igala Kingdom. And this is a headdress mask, which is found and used by the maiden of Central Cross River. You have a Genu helmet mask, which is also used by the Tungu for entertainment. This is an ancestral figure in Mbembe. Mbembe is the spoken language of the Bobra people. You have a face mask called Epo. Epo is also found in Ibibio, part of the Korepene, just like you have seen Ekpe. Inside, Ekpe is found in Cross River, it's Calabar. Epo is found in Ibibio. But that does not mean that you cannot have Epo in Calabar, but it's an Ibibio mask by origin. And finally, you have the Belede helmet mask, which is found in the Bado area of Yoruba land, part of Ketu in Lagos State and in the Republic. So this is where you come to the end. So thank you so very much.